Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. A big welcome to you all at the start of Microsoft Copilot Week. My name is Sean, and I'm delighted you are joining us for today's ESPC community webinar. Today, I'm joined by Daniel Laskovitz, who will cover building and extending Copilots. We love hearing what you guys have to say, so remember to join in on the conversation about today's webinar and more on X. Our handle is at ESBC_community, and our hashtag is hashtag ESBC24. Tweet us, tag us, and tell you what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access and view the Learning Hub by visiting our website, sharepointeurope.com, and clicking the Content tab at the top. Don't let the learning stop here. Continue to keep up and stay ahead by joining us for our next webinar, Getting Started with Microsoft Copilot, with Nikia Carter and Sheila Volante. This webinar is part of Microsoft Copilot Week and takes place this evening, Monday, 13th of May, 2024, at 4 to 5 p.m. CEST. For more information on this webinar, please check out our sharepointeurope.com/Microsoft Copilot Week. Big news, our ESBC program launch is live with 100 plus Microsoft 365 sessions. Dive into Copilot features heavily across the program with topics like Microsoft Azure, migration, security, governance, AI, security, Copilot Analytics, Copilot, Loop, and Microsoft 365 content. Book your tickets today at www.sharepointeurope.com/pricing. Don't miss out. Mark your calendars because EPPC is just around the corner, happening next month. With only a handful of 2-day tickets left, there's no better time now to secure your spot by visiting www.sharepointeurope.com/European Power Platform Conference pricing. After this webinar, we'll have a questions and answers session. Type any questions you might have into the questions window. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you will be notified by email when it is available. And now, I'm going to pass you over to today's webinar presenter, Daniel. Hello, Daniel. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me. So let me share my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen there, Daniel.
Okay, great. So hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Laskovitz, and I am a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft. I focus mostly on the Power Platform, and within the Power Platform, I focus mostly on everything except Power BI. And today I will be talking about Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio is the next iteration of Power Virtual Agents. So the people that already know Power Virtual Agents, they will probably see some familiar things in this presentation. But I will be talking about how to build your own custom Copilot and how to extend Copilots that are out of the box. So without further ado, let's start with what is Microsoft Copilot Studio. There we go. Copilot Studio is part of the Microsoft Power Platform, and we have Power Apps for application development, we have Power Automate for process automation, we have Power BI for the analytics, we have Copilot Studio for the intelligent copilots, and we have Power Pages for the external websites. Below that, we have a bunch of like extra functionalities within the Power Platform, and those are data connectors, AI Builder, Microsoft Dataverse, Power Effects, and managed environments. So during this presentation, I will also talk a little bit about data connectors because they are also a really big part of Copilot Studio, and I'll show you all about that. So when we zoom in on Microsoft Copilot Studio and where it stands in the Microsoft landscape, It is the tool within the Microsoft landscape for extending and customizing first-party Copilots and to build your own Copilots. It's built on top of the Azure stack. So all the things that you can do in Copilot Studio, they are also built on Azure software. So for instance, Azure AI Studio is another offering that we have, and that's more for the code first developers, and Copilot Studio is more for the low code. But it has been built on a bunch of the Azure features. So we can also use bot framework behind the scenes, and you can also extend your Copilots that you have in Microsoft Copilot Studio with Azure services. So that's something that's really important. We have a bunch of different Copilots at Microsoft. So we have the Copilot for Microsoft 365. We have for Dynamics 365 Copilot. We have all kinds of Copilot experiences. And Microsoft Copilot Studio is also the tool to extend those. So if you use Copilot for Microsoft 365 and it's not doing everything you want to, because it only does stuff with, for instance, the Graph API, and it doesn't act upon data, for instance, or it doesn't find your own systems because those are outside the Microsoft landscape. That's when you can extend with Copilot Studio. So you can still connect to, for instance, an SAP environment if you have that, etc. So Microsoft Copilot Studio is there for building your own Copilot, your custom Copilot. You can really easily, in a couple of clicks, you can create a Copilot. You can enter a website if you want to, and add that to your Copilot, and it will already start answering the questions about that website within minutes. And that's something that's really powerful to kind of get started really quickly. You can, of course, extend the Microsoft Copilot, so you can use the plugins for that. It is available with Microsoft Copilot, so whenever you buy a license for Copilot for Microsoft 365, you will automatically also get the extensibility possibilities in Microsoft Copilot Studio. So if you want to use, for instance, the plugins that you want to use for Copilot for Microsoft 365, those are included in the the Copilot for Microsoft 365. And it's a connected platform, so it works with all kinds of different products in the Microsoft stack. So, for instance, Azure AI Studio, as I already told about in the earlier slide, that's one of the extensibility possibilities that we have as well. So when you are building your own Copilot, and that's what we're going to focus on right now, you can easily create a Copilot with Copilot Studio. You can get started in minutes and already add your own website, for instance, or you can even add files, for instance, to your Copilot, and then it will chat over that file as well. You can also connect it to SharePoint sites, etc. In the generative AI features that we have. Next, we can create specific topics. So whenever you have, for instance, an HR topic and you have an HR person in your company that wants to be the owner of that, you can let people create those specific topics and make them available inside of a Copilot, for instance. And it's really easy to use because you can just create a topic and then add a couple of cards. It's almost like Power Automate. You have like all kinds of cards below each other. You can have conditions, you can have all kinds of things with the studio of Copilot Studio. Next, you also have actions and plugins. And actions and plugins are the options that you have to extend your Copilot with connectors. So if you already know the connectors inside of the Power Platform, there are already more than 1,400 of those. And a connector could be SAP, it could be Facebook, it can be all kinds of different connectors that you have. And you can also add those to your Copilot. And I'll show you that in a demo in a little while. And after that, when you're done with building your Copilot, you can publish it to multiple channels. And what you can do there is, for instance, you can add it to Teams, and your employees can easily use your Copilot in Microsoft Teams then. And it's just a click of a button with Microsoft Teams. When you want to do that, you can just click on turn on and it will deploy it for you. And that's a really nice functionality. But you also have all kinds of other channels. So you can also publish it to Facebook, you can publish it to WhatsApp, etc. There's a bunch of options there. And when you have published your Copilot, you of course want to know, how is my Copilot performing? Are people finding the stuff that they want to find, or are they asking for other topics that I don't have in my Copilot and I want to extend that as well? That's something you can do with the monitoring capabilities in Copilot Studio as well. So you have a really rich out-of-the-box analytics where you can see how your Copilot is performing. And last but not least, we have conversational services, so we can easily extend with Azure AI Studio, Azure Cognitive Services, for instance, and other Azure functionalities. So let's talk a little bit about creating a Copilot that can chat over your data. In Copilot Studio, we have a really nice feature, and that's called generative answers. I don't know how many of you already know about that, but generative answers is a functionality where you can add websites or you can add documents to, and then you can enable multi-turn chat for those components. So what you can do then is, for instance, if you have a website, you can ask questions about something on your website. You can ask follow-up questions. That's the multi-turn. So you can have a real conversation about all the data that you have. And it's something that you can get started with within minutes. So within minutes, you have your Copilot already running and answering all the questions about that data. And if you want to, you can also extend it with pulling data from APIs, for instance, if you want to. So there's even more functionality there as well. The file upload, so when you want to upload a file to your generative answers feature, you can upload those files via the upload box there, and it supports a whole bunch of documents. So it supports PDF documents, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, a whole bunch of different formats, and that's where you can easily manage that in generative answers. Next, the multi-channel platform, and this is where we talk about those channels that I just talked about. So if you want to publish this to a certain channel, you can publish it to Teams, you can publish it to a demo website, or even on a custom website or mobile app if you have that. You can publish that there. And that's really easy to do. So it's just a couple of clicks, and it's already running in Microsoft Teams, for instance. And to show you all that, I'm going to do a demo because I've been talking already for a while now, and I would love to show you some more about that. So let's go to my demo. So here we are on the Copilot Studio homepage, and I already am in an environment that I just created for this webinar. So what we have here is we can create a custom Copilot, or we can extend a Microsoft Copilot. So this is where you can get started really quickly. If you already have a bunch of Copilots, you can see those in the recent projects. For instance, you have a menu item here, Copilots, where you can create a new Copilot or import a Copilot, and also click on the Copilots that you already have here. We have an extend option here, and when you go there, it should give you the option to add, for instance, Power Platform components. And this is the extensibility for Copilot for Microsoft 365. So if you want to create a plugin for Copilot for Microsoft 365, this is the place where you need to be at extend. You can also add an OpenAI plugin if you already have that, or you can add Power Platform components. So that's something that's really cool. But for this demo, I'm going to create a custom Copilot. So let's create that. And here we see the Copilot name, which is Copilot 1. I'm going to change this to Copilot Week Assistant. And here, what I can select is the language that I want the Copilot to speak. We have a whole bunch of languages that we can use for a Copilot. And this is the primary language. This is something that's really important. This is the primary language. And what you can do is later on, you can add other languages as secondary languages. So you can make it speak English and Dutch, for instance, if you want to. And those possibilities are there later on. But here you choose your primary language, and from there on, you can also extend it and make it a multilingual chatbot if you want to as well. Next, we have the box here, give your Copilot some knowledge by setting up generative AI. This is where you can add your own website. So in this case, I already have the website from ESPC here. I'm going to copy the URL and I'm going to paste that into the box here. And another interesting thing that you should totally look at is edit advanced options, because when you click on that, you have the option to add an icon, you have the option to include or exclude the lesson topics. And you can, and this is maybe the most important one, you can select a solution for it. And solutions are really important if you want to build your Copilot and then bring it to a different environment, for instance. So if you have a proper setup with development, test, etc., that's where you want to use the solution for. In this case, I'm gonna just leave it by on default. I'm gonna click on the icon here because I want a different icon. But apart from that, I think it's all good now. So let's create this. And now Copilot Studio is gonna set up my Copilot. And this will normally take a couple of seconds because we optimize this for getting started as soon as possible. But here at the top, you can already see that there is a little message. This feature isn't available until your Copilot has finished setting up. So we optimize this to get started as soon as possible. So when you create a Copilot, you can already get started and work on topics, etc. You can already configure a whole bunch of things in your Copilot. But it's still running some setup in the background. So you're not able to publish yet, or now I am able to publish yet, because when I clicked on publish, the green message at the top showed that it's all provisioned. But normally in the beginning, you are not able to publish right away. So you have to wait a little bit longer than normal. But let's go to the overview. And here we can see the whole navigation of the Copilot inside of Copilot Studio. And what we have here is we have a test box. So here you can test your Copilot. So I can already start asking questions, for instance. So if I want to know more about ePPC, because that's almost around the corner, I believe. So when is ePPC 2024? And let me send that and see what it comes back with. And it gave me the answer. The European Power Platform Conference 2024 will take place in Brussels, Belgium from June 11th to June 13th. And it also gave me the reference. So it also gives me the place on the website where it found that information. And what I can also ask now is, for instance, who are speaking there? And then it will answer that question as well. Usually it takes a couple of seconds. So here are a whole bunch of speakers on there with the reference to the website as well. So this is how you can test out your Copilot already from the get-go. So let me give you a little bit of a tour over the rest of the things here. So the first thing that we have here is topics. And topics are those subjects that you can have conversations over. So for instance, if you have that HR employee in your company and they want to create their own topics, they can do that, for instance, and you can have certain topics on HR subjects, for instance. They can just easily create it by choosing topic and then from blank, for instance, but they can also create it from a description with Copilot, and that's always interesting because we have a Copilot Studio Copilot in this experience. So what you can then do is you can describe your topic and it will generate a topic for you. And then you can use it as some kind of templating service where you use a template instead of going from blank, for instance. So it saves you a lot of time. But those are the topics that are in there, and usually there are a whole bunch of topics already available out of the box. You can see here that we have lesson 1, 2, and 3. That is the thing that I highlighted in the earlier step in the advanced options, because those are the topics that you can include in your Copilot if you want to learn a little bit more about how to create a topic, for instance. So these are available when you have that checkbox on in the advanced options, but you can also leave them out. But there's a whole bunch of things here. You have the greeting, for instance. So when I say hello, it will go into that greeting topic. And if I click on it, you can see that. So for instance, when I say good afternoon or hello or hey or hi, it will respond with hello, how can I help you today? So it will have a bunch of standard topics out of the box already. And one of those topics is also the conversational boosting. Those are part of the system topics, but this is the one that we use for the public websites. And that's the website that I just added. So if you look here and click on edit, you can see that, hold on, let me see. There it is. So what we have here is we have the public website sharepointeurope.com in this data source. And that's the generative answers feature that we have here. And that's part of the conversational boosting. So that's one that we have here. When we go to generative AI, we have a lot of other options here. So we can add more websites and SharePoint sources if we want to. We can upload a document there. We can change the content moderation. This is also a really important one. Because when you set this to high, this is the default setting, it will generate less answers, but the responses are more accurate. So this is really a setting that I always promote to have that on high. But you have the option to change that a little bit and have a bit more control over it. So what you can do then is you can set it to medium if you want to let Copilot generate more answers for you, but it might be less relevant. Below that, we have also other things here. We have dynamic chaining, and this is something that's a really powerful feature, because dynamic chaining is the option that can kind of match your topics to whatever the user is asking for. So when you currently, I have not enabled this feature. So when I go to topics and I look at all the topics, it triggers on phrases. So what I can see here, for instance, for a greeting, it triggers on good afternoon, good morning, hello, hey, and hi. But I need to enter all those phrases myself. And what the other feature can do, so the dynamic chaining, it can pick a topic based on a description. So in every topic, you have to describe what the topic is about. So for instance, if I create a topic about HR, and I have a description of you can ask this topic for all kinds of HR questions, then when somebody asks, I want to know more about the HR, then it will trigger that topic, for instance. So it's a really powerful feature that will automatically already get like all the questions that are about HR. You don't have to all think about that. So that's a really nice one, what you have here. Another one here is the boost conversational coverage with generative answers, because we use the website in the create experience. That's when this got turned on. And at the bottom, there's also another thing, and that's instructions. And this is a really, really interesting new feature. What you can do here is you can enter instructions for your Copilot how it should behave. So what you can do here is, for instance, talk about the tone of voice of the Copilot that it needs to have. So do you want to have a formal or informal kind of experience for your end users? You can describe that in the instructions there. Okay, so that was generative AI. The next one is actions. In here, I can create actions, and actions are the connectors, basically. So if you want to use the connectors inside of the Power Platform, so you want to connect to SAP or something else, you can do that by creating actions. And that's the setting that you have here. We have entities, and these are ways to kind of extract data from text. So for instance, age is one of the entities, and age can of course be a number, but it can also be text, for instance. So if you are saying you're 37, for instance, that's when you can type it as 37, or you can have 37. And to make sure that you can use conditions after that, etc. You don't want to have the condition if it's 37 as text or as a number. So that's where you have the age entity for, so that it extracts it from the text, and it will always make it a number, so that you don't have to think about the text, for instance. So that's one of those functionalities that you have here as well. Another one is analytics, and this is not going to be really interesting for now because this is just created and there's not a lot of data in there. But here you can see analytics on your Copilot. Publish is for publishing, of course, and then we have another option here for extending Microsoft Copilot. In this case, we're not going to go into that. And there's a setting menu where you have even more functionalities in there. So that's something that you should be aware of as well. Okay, so for now, I am gonna use a SharePoint site because I want to show you that as well. So here I have a SharePoint site with my documents library, and I have a PDF in here. So I would like to add this URL to my Copilot so that I can also ask questions about this PDF. And this PDF is the AI Builder Prompting Guide, which is a really nice reference that you can have. And this talks about prompting. So if I want to ask a question about what can you build with prompts, for instance, it will answer the question from this document. So let's try that out and go back to the generative AI part and paste the URL in there. And this is my SharePoint URL. So I add this, it automatically recognizes that it's a SharePoint site, and I click on save. And when I click on save, it will update that for me. Now we can test the Copilot. So let's try it again. And ask a question, what can I build with prompts? Let's see if it answers the question. It shouldn't take long. There we go. So here it responds with a whole question, to the question with an answer. And what I can see here, it also uses the reference AI Builder Prompting Guide. And when I hover it at the bottom, you can see that it comes from the low-code-revolution.sharepoint.com website. So this is how easy it is to get this content in there. Now I am totally fine with the content that I have on there because I have the website already and I have the PDF on there. So I would like to publish this now to Teams. So let's go to channels and go to Teams. And here you can turn on Teams as a channel. And when you do that, it will make sure that it's available on Teams. So it will do a bunch of deployment on the back end. And it will connect this to Teams. I need to publish it, so I'm going to publish it as well. There we go. So it should publish it right now. And this is when you hit publish, it will check all the topics if there are any errors in there, for instance, or if it's working really well. So that's what it's doing now. So that shouldn't take that long. Come on, you can do it. Publish is also something that you should be really aware of, because I've seen a lot of cases where people are using the Copilot Studio to kind of edit their chatbot, and then they forget to publish. So always be aware that you have to publish to make it available for everyone, so that you can get all the things that you have configured inside of the Copilot Studio to your end users as well. But I published the Copilot, and we should be ready to go. So let's go back to channels and go to Teams. And here I should be able to now open the Copilot. And this, sometimes it takes a little while because it's deploying a bunch of things on the back end. So sometimes you will get an error when you do this too soon. But I hope this is going to work now. So let's wait a little bit. There we go. And here it shows the app, the Copilot Week Assistant that we just created, and I can click on add. And what it does then, it adds it to my Teams. And now from here on, I can ask questions again. So if I ask the question, when is EPPC 2024? It should come back with an answer on that. There we go. And we can also see when I hover it that it got it from the SharePointEurope.com website. So this is like really a superpower of Copilot Studio, because when you have to do this all manual, this takes a pretty long time, and it's a lot of work to make this available for everyone in your environment. And with Copilot Studio, it's just a couple of clicks and you're done. So what we needed for this was basically create a Copilot, add the URL to it. We needed to publish it, we needed to add a channel, and then open it in Teams, and then it's already available for everyone. So it's only a couple of steps, and normally you have to configure a whole bunch of different things. But for now, this shows exactly what we configured. So with that, let's move on back to my slides. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about generative actions, because I showed you the actions part inside of Copilot Studio, but I haven't really showed you how you can use that. But the actions and plugins, so if you go to actions inside of Copilot Studio, you can add those plugins. And this slide is already very old because it's 1,000 plus pre-built connectors, but we are already at 1,400, so it's going pretty fast. But what you can do here is you can create an action, and that action will connect to one of the actions inside of a connector. So as you can see on the screenshot, for instance, there is Excel Online Business, for instance, and you can get a row from an Excel file, for instance, if you want to. But there are tons of others as well, like SAP, for instance, Salesforce, Dynamics. You can use a whole bunch of connectors out there. And those actions can then be added to your Copilot. And what's special about actions is that it's kind of a wrapper around an action of a connector. And with that dynamic chaining, the feature that I showed you a little bit earlier, that is really a thing that can help you a lot, because dynamic chaining also can extract the inputs that you need for that action. So for instance, if you want to, for instance, send an email to someone and you want to use the action for that, you always need to have a to. So to who are you going to send this? What is the subject? What is the body? And those inputs are always needed for that action to run. And if you would type something in your chatbot, I would like to send an email to email address and with this subject and this body. then it will extract all the different parts and put it in that action and then execute it. And that's really nice to see, because then you don't have to write all kinds of conditional logic or whatever. It will just grab it from the input message. So that's something that's really powerful. And what it can also do is it can, for instance, grab data. So get a row, for instance, on Excel Online Business is one of the actions that you can create. And then you will get details of that row, of course. And it can use also generative AI to make that a nice text to send that back to your Copilot. So that's something that's possible as well. The Power Platform connectors, they can also be used inside of Microsoft 365 Copilot. So what you can do, for instance, is you can create an extension or a plugin for Copilot for Microsoft 365, and then also ask about the data in those connectors and use that inside of Copilot for Microsoft 365. So that's something that's possible as well. Let me go to the generative actions demo, because I would love to show you that as well. So here we go. And this is going to be a bit more technical, but I have a web API available inside of Visual Studio. And this can be my own API, for instance, that I have developed in my company. And what I can do here is, for instance, I can use a connected service inside of Visual Studio. And what I can do here is I can add a connected service called Microsoft Power Platform. And this will connect my web API that's currently local. And it can connect it to a Power Platform environment. So in this case, I'm going to use Copilot Week as the Power Platform environment, and let the connected service look for the solution. In this case, we're going to use the Common Data Services default solution. And I need to add a custom connector here for my custom API. So let's click on the plus here. I'm going to create the Contoso API app _ connector. And I need to have a public dev tunnel. So I need to create that one as well. So let me go to the right account and call this my dev tunnel. And I should be able to click next and finish this. So what it's doing now, it's building the project, and it will add the connected service to my project. It will deploy the dev tunnel as well, so that we can use that. And it will generate a custom connector file for me. And this normally takes a couple of seconds. But in the meantime, let's go to Copilot Studio. So let's go back here. And what I want to do here is I want to go to generative AI, and I want to make sure that I have dynamic chaining on, because I'm going to use that in this example. So let me save that one, and that's done. And refresh this. And now I will go back to the Visual Studio, and here it says that it's complete. So the Power Platform custom connector is configured. I can click close now here. And what I want to show you here is I want to show you the debugging capabilities that we have here. So I'm going to set a breakpoint here, and I'm now going to run this API, and I'm going to show you that we can use this inside of Copilot Studio as well. So let's run this. Okay, I think it's running now. There we go. Here we are. Let's click on continue. And what it will show now is it will show the Swagger file here. And this is the definition of my API. What I can do here is I can, for instance, try out the API in the web interface. So what I can do here is I can add an order number and execute it and see that it hits the breakpoint. And here I can see the order number is 12345, etc. So that's how I can debug this. But it's also possible to do this inside of Copilot Studio. So let's do that as well. And what I need to do for that is I need to add an action. And here I'm going to create an action. I'm going to look for Contoso because that's how I called my API. And here we can see that I have the Contoso API app underscore connector. That's the name that we used earlier in the demo in the Visual Studio connected service. So I click on that one, and then it will look for connection details. And this usually takes a little while. And there we are. It creates a connection. I click on next. And what I can see here now is I can see that I have an input called order number. I have a whole bunch of outputs that come out of the this action. And what I can do here is I can just finish this, and this should be able for me now to if it's done at least, I should be able to ask questions about an order detail. So let me enter the tracing mode. This is a new capability that's available because I added the dynamic chaining feature. And what I want to do here is I want to ask for order details about order 12345, for instance. So what are the order details of order 12345? Let's see if it will trigger the right thing. And here we go. It hit the breakpoint already. So what I can see here now is that it's using the order number 12345 as well in there. And when I continue this one, it should also respond with details. So the whole output that I got from my web API, it put that in a text message. So what I can see here is the whole order for order 12345. And it has a bunch of items in there with pricing, etc. And the whole the action, it generated the whole text based on the output of that connector. And I didn't have to do anything for that. It just created that because I created the action. And this is something that's really, really powerful for that. So that's something that is really cool as well. So make sure to check that out if you want to do that as well. Let me go back to my slides. Okay, extensibility. We only talked about creating your own custom Copilot for now. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the extensibility. So within Copilot Studio, we have a lot of extensibility possibilities. So what we can do, for instance, is we can use adaptive cards as responses. I used text in this example, but you can also use adaptive cards when you want to use those actions, for instance. So that's something that's really powerful as well. What you can also do is you can use the code editor inside of Copilot Studio. So everything within Copilot Studio, for instance, the topics, but also the actions, they have a code editor next to it. And you can open that up and then copy and paste and do all kinds of things there. So that's something that you can do as a pro dev if you want to. There are also really nice features around productivity. So you have cut, copy, and paste functionalities, and they also work if you, for instance, use the code editor. So when you go to code editor and you select the text and you copy it and then you paste it in the UI, that also works. So it's a really nice feature as well. You can also extend with Azure services. There are a bunch of options there. So for instance, you can use custom language understanding, and that can make it a bit different than the normal out-of-the-box language understanding that you use in Copilot Studio. So if you want to have your own custom language understanding models, you can use those with Copilot Studio as well. You can also bring your own knowledge base, so that with questions and answers, for instance, you can do document search on Azure OpenAI on your data. And we can also bring your own generative AI. So if you want to use the Azure OpenAI Studio, you can use that as well. So the custom language understanding is a way to upload the models that you have built yourself, for instance, and you can add those to your Copilot Studio Copilot as well. And that will have a different type of natural language understanding in there. And you can build that all by yourself and then add that to Copilot Studio. So that's if you want to have more control over how it goes into a certain topic, for instance, and what the matching is, you can do that with with custom language understanding. CQA integration is custom question answering functionality. So this is basically if you have a big FAQ, you can have that here as well, and then you can generate answers from that as well. That's also an integration that you have within Copilot Studio. So that's a really nice one as well. And Azure OpenAI on your data integration is also a really interesting integration. I didn't show that during the demo here. But we showed the public websites and the SharePoint sites and the upload of the files. But if you scroll down a little bit lower, there is the option to connect it to Azure OpenAI, and that's what you can do with the integration as well. And then you can, if you already have Azure OpenAI on your data, you can easily add that to your Copilot as well, and you don't have to do it on two places, for instance. You don't have to maintain it there on two places, but you can just reuse the thing that you already have. So that's a really nice one as well. Application insights. If you want a bit more advanced monitoring of your Copilot, we already have the monitoring and all the capabilities in Copilot Studio, but application insights gives you a little bit more detail on that. So if you want to use that, you can connect your Copilot to application insights as well. So that's a really interesting one to see. We also have non-Azure integrations. So I just talked about a whole bunch of Azure services that you can integrate into Copilot Studio, but there are also Power Platform integration. So for instance, if you have a Power Pages website, you can easily add your Copilot to that Power Pages website, and you can add that as a component to your Power Pages website. So that's a really cool one as well to have there. Power Apps integration is also really interesting because you have a component called Copilot, and you can add that to your app if you want to as well. So you can reuse your Copilot everywhere, basically. So if you have an internal Power App that uses the same Copilot as your public website, for instance, you can use that with your Power App as well. So that's a really interesting one as well. Okay, the last part is about extending existing Copilots, and this one is all about Copilot for Microsoft 365. So within Copilot for Microsoft 365, we have the capability to extend the Copilot. What you can do there is you can add plugins, and there are a whole bunch of plugins currently available. So what we have is prompt plugins, and that is really, really helpful for generating content, for instance. So if you want to summarize a long text, for instance, that is something that you can do. You can also reference inside of Copilot for Microsoft 365 certain documents, for instance, that you have on your OneDrive or on the SharePoint site. And you can add those to your prompt plugins as well. So if you want to summarize a long document in a bulleted list of 10 items or something. That's what you can do with the prompt plugins. And the good thing about prompt plugins is that everybody can have those prompts, and you can save them locally or whatever. But with prompt plugins, you can create that plugin and make it available for reuse. So if you have a really nice prompt plugin that your whole company could benefit from, for instance, to summarize a long text, for instance, people can also reuse your prompt plugin. So that's something that that is really powerful with this, because it's like a big library of prompts, basically what it is. So that's prompt plugins. Conversational plugins is the second one. That is basically what I showed was a topic. So a conversational plugin enables you to create a topic and call them through Copilot for Microsoft 365. And what you can do there is also you can trigger the actions if you want to. So in the example that I showed you earlier with the web API for the order details, I can also use that one inside of a conversational plugin, for instance. So if I want to get order details through Copilot for Microsoft 365, I can create a conversational plugin that does that. There's also connector plugins. And connector plugins are when you can, for instance, use a connector to get data from ServiceNow or from the Salesforce connector, and get all the leads that you want or that you have in your Salesforce environment, for instance. Those examples are there. And last but not least, we have Power Automate plugins, and that's basically a flow that you can trigger from Copilot for Microsoft 365 as well. And what you can do there is, for instance, create an approval and send the approval adaptive card via Teams. So those are available as well. Yeah, let's show a couple of links. You can get started today to go to aka.ms/try Copilot Studio. And there are a bunch of links on the right side. One that I really want to highlight is the implementation guide. And that's a really nice resource. You can get a document of that, and that will help you with a kind of plan on how to implement Copilot Studio inside of your organization. And there's also a link at the bottom, Power Platform Prompts. That is a really nice resource as well, because I was talking a little bit about the prompt plugins, and the Power Platform Prompts. They have a bunch of prompt plugins or helpful prompts available there as well, and you can reuse those for your own organization. So with that, I would like to open it up for questions.
Amazing, and thank you, Daniel, for a great presentation and demos. So now we'll get into the question and answers part.
Yeah.
Should you wish to ask any question, feel free to type it in the question window now. So our first question is it possible to use for Copilot also non-public websites, providing a valid URL/password?
No, currently not. The generative answers functionality that I showed is only for public websites and for private SharePoint websites. So that's what you can do now. But I wouldn't be surprised if they will change that later on. For now, it's not there yet, but in the future, I will expect that it will be there in the future as well.
Amazing. So just the next question there, Daniel. Can you say something about the pricing? If I was to test to create a new Copilot and publish this in our Microsoft 365 environment at work, will this generate a license cost automatically?
So there's two different things. What we have is we have the extensibility of Copilot for Microsoft 365, and that's included inside of the Copilot for Microsoft 365 licensing. And when you create a custom Copilot, like I did, and deployed that to Teams, that is something that you get charged by per message. So you can buy a lot of messages, like 10,000 messages, and then it will go from that allocation. Does it make sense?
So,
yeah.
So just the next question there. Could you clarify whether it is feasible to utilize web pages that necessitate cookie agreements or authentication procedures with Copilot? Additionally, does the web page intended for use with Copilot comply with the allowances specified in the robots.txt file for ChatGPT, or is there a dedicated search engine that must be permitted to incorporate the web page? That makes sense.
Not really. Yeah, so it's just triggering all of it gets all the data from the website. It uses Bing search, so all the information is being crawled by Bing, the search engine from Microsoft, and that information is being used in the generative answers feature. So it will probably go through the cookie thing as well in that experience. But yeah, it uses Bing search for it. So it just uses the crawl from the same search engine. And that will also use, I believe, the normal sitemap and that kind of structure from the website.
Perfect. So just the next question there is, are there some specifics to consider if we use SharePoint site as a Copilot source, and if we want to publish this Copilot on the same SharePoint site?
I think that if you use SharePoint, SharePoint is for the experience that I just showed with Teams. It's really powerful because it doesn't need a lot of configuration. If you want to put it on a SharePoint site, it will take a lot more work. So a SharePoint site is basically if you want to add a Copilot to that page, it's almost like a custom website, and that normally takes a little bit more work than doing it via Teams, for instance. So I would always try to do it through Teams, for instance. Yeah, you can do it on SharePoint as well, but it will take a little bit more work on that side.
Okay, so you've mentioned that the reference points to the location of the web page where the evidence has been found. What happens when the link is clicked? Will the web page scroll to that position? Is there any highlighting at the evidence?
No, they don't highlight anything, but they will send you straight to that page of the website. So it will just give you a link to the website. You click on it, it will open it, and it will start from the top, basically. So it doesn't go to the right part in the page. Maybe that's a thing that in the future will change, but for now it just works like clicking it and that's it.
Perfect. So just the next question there. What is the authentication needed for the SharePoint source to be available for Copilot Studio? We tried to follow the guide here, learn.microsoft/ENUS Microsoft Copilot Studio configuration authentication Azure add, but we still cannot get Copilot Studio to answer questions based on the SharePoint documents.
Okay. I hope that they can reach out to me, because then I'll probably have to debug a little bit on their side. So if you can reach out to me apart from this, because it's not an answer I can give you within the couple of minutes that we have left. So make sure to reach out to me at least.
We just have 4 questions left, if that's all right,
Okay.
Daniel.
Sure.
Is it possible to add the Copilot directly onto the SharePoint site as well as opposed to using Teams?
Yeah, you can do that, and that's something I described a little bit earlier as well. You have to do it as a custom website, so you have to configure the custom website experience there, and then add that into your SharePoint environment by, for instance, using SharePoint Framework, or maybe using embedded code or something like that.
Perfect. So next question is, what about security? For HR, you probably don't want everybody to access/ask questions via Copilot.
It depends where you publish your Copilot, of course. If you want to have HR questions on a Copilot and you want to have security there, you can have all kinds of security already configured inside of Copilot Studio. So, for instance, with the SharePoint integration, you could have an HR document library with all kinds of HR documents, and it will still inherit the security of the SharePoint site. So that is some kind of way you can make sure that the security is all right, instead of that everybody can access anything. The Copilot will not answer details about the documents that the user doesn't have access to. So that's something that that can be an interesting scenario.
Amazing. Thanks, Daniel. So next question is, I have understood the Microsoft 365 Copilot license is not required for users, but will enhance the experience. What are the differences for the end user?
The differences between?
That's the question he has in his.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they can elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah. I'll just go to the next one.
Yeah.
Is it possible to get information that is deeper than the current 2 levels only when referencing SharePoint sites with Copilot?
Currently not, but it might be that in the future, and we have gotten that feedback a lot. So we of course also want to work on that. But currently it's not possible. But maybe in the future we will have an upgrade where we can do that.
Perfect. So this will just be the last question.
Yeah.
As we're hitting 11 o'clock or 12. So just the last question there, Daniel. Is it possible for Copilot to trigger a flow from Power Automate?
Yes. So you can use an action to send a request to Power Automate, for instance. So you run that Power Automate workflow from a topic, for instance, or you can use those if you want to extend Copilot for Microsoft 365. You have that plugin for Power Automate. So that's also one of the possibilities there.
Perfect. So that's all the questions. So on behalf of the ESPC community, we'd like to extend a big thank you to you again, Daniel, for taking the time today to carry out this webinar. We really appreciate it. So that's the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. Thanks again to all of you for joining us today, and I hope you'll join us again soon. Take care.